Unfortunately, here in America, we don't have the best reputation when it comes to school safety. And because of that, we always had to practice school lockdowns. I don't know if that's normal around the globe, but in America, it's pretty standard protocol. We would do like a practice run every 3 months or so, where everyone would just get in a closet and cuddle up. And luckily for me, it was always practice, but not everyone is so lucky. Unfortunately, there are a lot of students had to go through real-life lockdowns where there was an intruder in the school. And today, we're checking out 3 of the most horrifying ones. Story 1.
This took place 2 years ago, and I can still recall every moment in almost perfect detail. It was nearing the end of school. Everyone was on their way to their last period, which for me was history. A class that I not only wasn't good at, but I also disliked the teacher, and at that point I honestly had no motivation of even showing up. So, ultimately, I decided to ditch and hide out in one of the bathroom stalls located near the very back of the school.
Although, wait, if you don't show up to class though, the teacher will take note of that and you'll get in trouble, at least the schools I went to. The better strategy is to show up to the class, check in, and then go to the bathroom for like 30 minutes. Bang! Just tell her you were having problems. Anyway, serious time. Come on. Lock in.
Almost no one went back there, so I figured no one would find out anyway. I was in the furthest back stall, playing some game on my phone, when the ear-deafening sound of the principal coming over the intercom made me jump.
Lockdown, lockdown. This is an emergency alert. Please follow lockdown procedures. Go into the nearest room or building, lock the door, and turn off all lights.
Now, I don't know about you guys, but I was taught that if you're outside of the classroom when a lockdown happens, to stay where you are. I think the idea is like the intruder will be in the hallway. So then if you start running around in the hallway, you might get popped. I'm just gonna say it. You might get popped. On top of that, all of the teachers lock their door and they will not answer if you knock or anything. So even if you do run back to your classroom, the door's gonna be locked. So you're taught to like hide essentially wherever you are no matter what. So this guy is gonna end up having to hide inside of the stall, I think.
It was a lockdown announcement, though I honestly didn't pay it any attention considering they were all practice, and so I just continued to sit there in the stall and wait. But just then, all the lights to the building seemingly shut off all at once.
Ooh.
The hum of the light faded, along with the buzzing of the AC unit, which meant all the power to the school had been cut off. The bathroom had gone pitch black, and that's when I was actually starting to get worried. Power was never cut off during practice lockdown drills. I texted my friend asking him what was going on, and literally right away he answered back with a text saying, "Dude, where are you? It's a real lockdown. Everyone's asking where you are." I told him I was in the bathroom, and he responds saying I should hide. But where else could I go? I wasn't just gonna run out into the hallway to find a better spot.
That's so silly. Because the idea is like, oh, let's turn the lights off and then the intruder will have no idea that we're in here. Hey, dude, it's Tuesday at 11 a.m. Really? You really think that he's gonna be like, oh, well, I guess the kids didn't show up today. Off I go. I'm gonna leave now because the lights are off. That doesn't make any sense at all. If anything, it just makes it scary for everybody.
Ultimately, I decided to stay and hide in the stall I was in. I turned my phone's brightness down and texted my friend again. I asked him what the reason was for the lockdown, and after 5 long minutes of waiting, he replied saying that apparently there was a kid armed with a knife banging on classroom doors and asking to be let in. Both my classroom and the bathroom I was in were on the same floor, so I turned off my phone and tried my best to see if I could hear anything.
Nah.
There were running footsteps. And that was shortly followed by the sound of the bathroom door opening.
No.
I was absolutely horrified at what I was hearing. Whoever entered walked towards the stall next to me, went inside, and shut the door. I held my breath for what seemed like forever. Then, to break the silence, in a shaky voice, I said, "Who's in here?" It was silent for a second, and then I heard a voice reply
Not a bad play.
with, "I'm just looking for a place to hide. I heard there was a lockdown over the speakers."
Honestly, not a bad play, though, to ask who's in here. Because if it is the intruder with the knife or the student with the knife, he's gonna find you either way. You may as well try to make friends with him. You may as well offer him $1 million Robux to leave you alone. Whatever you gotta do at that point. But worst case scenario, you say nothing, and then he'll just start attacking you. So I actually do respect and like the play of trying to get to know who it is. Anyway, let's see where this goes.
That didn't really answer my question, but the guy sounded around my age, and so I decided I'd just let it go.
Oh, wait, maybe that actually is the guy with the
for what
knife.
seemed like forever. when finally we got another announcement telling all students to exit the school in an orderly fashion through the front doors, where cops would be waiting outside. I exited the stall, but was surprised to see the guy next to me didn't. I asked him if he was coming, and he replied saying, yeah man, just...
That might be him. That might be him. Maybe, oh my god, maybe like he actually stabbed somebody and then got scared and ran away and ran into a stall. Maybe he like stabbed somebody and regretted what he did. So now he's kind of just hiding on his own in the stall.
As I was walking, my phone went off. My friend had texted me. He said that apparently a kid who was maybe a couple years older than us tried to rob a nearby gas station at knife point. The guy actually stabbed a couple people, and when he was unsuccessful in getting any money, he ran to hide in our school to blend in as one of the students. But what horrified me the most was the last sentence. My friend said that the cops outside were saying that the kid was still inside, and that he was hiding somewhere in the back of the school.
It's him, oh my god.
Reading this changed my walk to the front doors into a full-on sprint. Right as I got outside, I would frantically inform one of the police officers of what I had experienced. And after they searched the bathroom, they found it was empty, but that the window inside was broken. The kid had broken and escaped through the window. Needless to say, for the next few school days, I had gotten a lot of unwanted attention because of what I had experienced. As far as I know, the kid still hasn't been caught, and it's still just difficult for me to come to terms with the fact that I was unknowingly hiding in a stall right next to the guy I was trying to hide from.
That is really, really creepy. It sounds like, though, that he was never actually in danger because the kid was just running from something that he did outside of the school. And he was trying to, you know, just be safe. He wasn't intruding in a school with a knife to do any harm to anybody. He was kind of just trying to run away from what he did outside the school. So the situation could have been like a million times worse. But that is still a horrifying story. He literally spoke to the killer. That's really creepy. Story number 2.
I somewhat recently got my first real job as a teacher.
Before we continue, why do they make schools with no windows? Like, this is how all my schools were too growing up. Just a bunch of bricks and no windows. Why do they do that? Maybe it's safety precaution? Like, I guess it's safer, technically, but it feels like a prison. You're in class and it's just like lights and walls and no windows, and it's terrible. It's terrible vibes. My thing is, like, they have to do that on purpose, right? There's no way that they're building these schools and forgetting to put windows. So what is the reason that they do that? Because I personally hate it.
I somewhat recently got my first real job as a teacher at a public elementary school in a nearby neighborhood.
So this one, our protagonist is an actual teacher. Much different than being a student, because as a teacher, you probably feel a sense of responsibility over the kids and the students. To whereas, like, if there was an intruder, you would probably feel like you would have to be the one to protect them if said intruder entered into your classroom. So this is going to be a completely different perspective.
It was the first school year I was teaching, and at this point, it was only September. So, needless to say, I was still learning the ropes. It was honestly pretty stressful. I teach a first grade class of around 20 kids, so you can imagine how chaotic it would get at times, especially with my lack of experience. I remember one day, I was in the middle of assigning the kids a worksheet for spelling simple words, when the principal's voice came over the school's loudspeaker and ordered a lockdown. Now, being a new teacher, I wasn't yet informed of when the school had practiced lockdown drills around the year.
Oh my god.
Therefore, I had no idea if this was a drill or not. But I knew either way,
That does seem a little sus. Like, even though you're a new teacher, how would they not ever tell you about the school lockdown? Like, that seems like a little hiccup in this story here. I'm not saying I necessarily don't believe it, but at the same time, it's like, how would they never tell you that? I guess it could happen, though. It could happen.
Follow protocol. I turned off the room's lights. But I knew either way, I had to follow protocol. I turned off the room's lights, locked the doors and windows, and had the kids sit against the walls out of sight. I'd say maybe 5 minutes passed of complete silence when I could faintly start to hear doors being banged on down the hall.
I will never get over the whole turn the lights off and hide thing. Like, the intruder, it sounds like the intruder's going on, banging on the doors and like maybe peeking in. Hello, is there anybody in there? Oh, the lights are off. Oh, there must be nobody in here. Like, intruders probably aren't the smartest people in the world. I would assume that if you're intruding and are intending to do harm to children, you are probably a very low IQ individual.
Emotional, damn it!
I could feel my heart start to race as the sounds got louder, as whoever was banging on the doors got closer. At this point, I still had no idea whether it was just the principal checking all the classroom locks or an actual intruder in the school. But my thoughts were interrupted by one of my students bursting out crying.
I'm sorry to keep pausing it. I'm sure like a lot of you guys are like, bro, like just watch the video. And I get it. I'm sorry. Hand up. I'm apologizing. But I was gonna call that in the beginning because he said like it was one of the details that he was teaching first grade. And the first thing I thought of was, oh my God, if you're a teacher teaching first grade during a lockdown, how old are first graders? Like 7, 8 years old? I don't know. They're young. They might not understand what's going on and they might not understand that they have to be quiet. And so I could see a situation where the kids aren't taking it seriously and they're screaming and they're yelling and they're playing games. And you're like, dude, shut the front door right now. Like you're gonna get us killed. Like it's not funny. It's really not funny.
Thoughts were interrupted by one of my students bursting out crying. It was too loud. There's no doubt whoever was outside would have been able to hear it. I could tell. The banging outside stopped in response to the noise, shortly after followed by a single pair of footsteps walking up to the door.
You can hear the footsteps? I don't know, it sounded
for a
sus,
few
guys.
seconds, but the silence was quickly broken by a male's voice yelling out, "Hey guys, I think there's kids in this one." And that confirmed this lockdown was real. More footsteps could be heard running up to the door, and that's when genuine attempts to break down the door were made by multiple people. At that point, not a single kid in the class wasn't crying or screaming in fear. I didn't know what to do. I was never trained for this kind of situation. And that's when 2 gunshots could be heard.
What?
But it didn't come from the intruders. Police were now inside the building. Right after the shots were fired, the intruders could be heard running down the hall. 30 minutes later,
No way.
and we were given the all clear. It turns out the intruders were 3 local high school students. They were eventually caught, but when asked why they did it, they would say close to nothing. Although, one of the kids claimed it was a bet, but personally I don't believe that for a second. No bet is worth going to court over, and even possibly—
Like, dude, if that actually was a bet, obviously, the guy's a psychopath. He should be in prison. Terrible, terrible guy. But you have to respect his integrity, and you have to respect his dedication. Like, bro lost a bet where the punishment was you have to invade a school and do something to the kids, and he came through. I know people that would literally lose a $2 bet and will not pay up.
I firmly believe they had much worse intentions. Although most likely traumatized, luckily no one was physically hurt. The shots that were fired by the police were claimed to have been warning shots and were aimed directly into the ground. It's been 2 years since this all happened, and I still teach first grade at the same school and even in the same classroom. And to this day, those bullet holes can still be seen in the school's hallway.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. This one seems pretty sus. Like, cops don't shoot warning shots. That's not a thing. They don't put that, like, that's in movies. You don't do that because obviously bullets are very dangerous. You don't shoot just stray bullets randomly. You can hurt somebody on accident. It happens. There's no way I believe that they shot warning shots.
This happened back when I was in middle school. Technically, it was actually my last day in middle school. It was late May, and for our last day, our school would do a sort of field day where the whole school would play a bunch of games to celebrate the end of the school year. Now, back then, I used to be a pretty active kid, but unfortunately, due to a recent concussion, I was unable to participate in any games the whole day. I was pretty disappointed, yeah.
Field day on the very last day? I'm sorry to keep, like, maybe potentially ruining the story. And again, I'm not definitively saying that this isn't true, but I personally never had field day on the like, it was always late in the school year, but it wasn't the last day. The last day was more so like, you don't necessarily have classes, but you go and like say goodbye to everybody. You know, it's a slow day. You go to the classes. No one's teaching anymore though. It's like you watch movies and eat candy and it's more of like a, you know, a walkthrough of the day where you get to say bye to everybody. Not field day though.
Though I did bring my DS and quickly opted to just sit inside one of the classrooms and play that, as I mean there wasn't really anything else I could do. None of the teachers seemed to mind, so there I was, all by myself in the classroom for my science class playing my DS, all the while the other kids got to play games in the school's gymnasium. It was a weird feeling being in that classroom alone. I don't really know how to explain it. I mean, up until that point, I don't think I'd ever been in a classroom completely alone. Something that needs to be mentioned is that the teachers that weren't watching the kids in the gymnasium were in a room across the hall having meetings. I'd say I was playing on my DS for not even an hour when my English teacher, Miss Allen, rushed up to the classroom's door and closed it from the outside. She didn't say anything to me, so I figured she just wanted to make sure I couldn't hear whatever the teachers were talking about across the hall. Forgetting about it, I went back to playing my DS. A couple minutes later, the classroom's door swung open. I expected to see one of the teachers coming in to check on me, but no, a man I'd never seen before walked into the room and closed the door behind him.
What?
The guy had to have at least been in his 50s, and so I just assumed it was some kid's dad. It wasn't unusual for parents to come into the school to bring a student their lunch, so I asked if he was looking for someone. He replied with no, in a tone that seemed almost offended that I would even ask that question. Before I could say anything else, the guy started walking towards me. I asked him what he was doing, and that's when he lifted up his shirt, revealing a handgun on his waistband. He followed it up by saying, "Look, kid, I'm gonna need you to come with me, or I'm gonna kill you."
How did this guy make it to this point without anybody noticing him? This is so weird, especially because his teacher closed the door, didn't say a word, almost as if like predicting that something like this would even happen. Like that's such a weird coincidence. Maybe the teacher's in on it or something. And he said, "Come with me or I'll kill you." Where is he taking him? Is he gonna kidnap him in the middle of school? There's no way that would work.
The guy said it in the most carefree tone I had ever heard. And that, along with the fact that I'd never even seen a gun in person before, instantly overwhelmed me with pure fear. Before I could fully comprehend the danger of the situation I was in, the guy firmly grabbed my wrist and started pulling me towards the classroom door. But before we got into the hallway, the deafening sound of our school's lockdown alarm started going off. This was followed by the guy instantly letting go of my wrist and making a run for it down the hall and through a back exit. I stood there in shock for a second, but ultimately went back inside the classroom. I'm not sure how much time had passed when Miss Allen came back into the room and told me that she didn't want to scare me, but that there had been an intruder inside the building and a lockdown which now was over had taken place. I would tell her about the man, and instantly she brought me to a police officer who was already on the premises to explain what I had experienced.
Why would the teacher not bring the student with them? Like, she knew that the student was in the science room, and then where did she run off to? I mean, I guess maybe she ran off to like the principal, or maybe she was the one who like signaled the lockdown event happening. But if she went to like a safe room and didn't bring the kid with her, that is so messed up that she would just leave the kid alone.
The man was reported to have been scoping out the school all morning, and when he was seen getting close to the building itself, someone would call the police, which resulted in the lockdown. The guy was later caught and would openly admit that he had been trying to scare kids into getting into his car so he could kidnap them. And this reality still horrifies me to this day. Not a day goes by where I'm not thankful for the school's alarm going off when it did.
That guy has a terrible business strategy though. There's no way that running into a school and just stealing one of the kids would work. I feel like it makes me sound sus giving this guy advice on how to properly kidnap kids, but that's not the way to do it. There's gotta be better ways than that. You're gonna get caught every single time that way. And if you guys want me to watch even more of these, let me know by leaving a like, hitting that subscribe button, and clicking right here to watch another awesome video.